There is a massive issue currently affecting the NBA, and that issue can be summed up in one word: officiating.
And Chris Paul has a problem. It's a big problem where Scott Foster could not referee Chris Paul games anymore.
The problem has become so severe that NBA fans believe that the games are becoming increasingly difficult to watch. The game is losing its edge. Once upon a time, bad boy players could get away with anything on the court, but not anymore. Suddenly, officials are cracking down on everything, leaving the game looking soft and lacking in the intensity it once had. It's time to bring back the thrill of the game and let players play with the passion and intensity that used to define it.
Just kind of f***s the game up. Nobody's coming to see that shit. They come to see the players. And I think we're losing a little bit of the fabric of what the NBA is and was. And
the referees in the NBA have been making questionable decisions lately. For example, Giannis was ejected for simply staring down Isaiah Stewart.
What a finish. Goes up and yokes it. Isaiah Stewart's right there. Gives him a little stare, doesn't say anything.
And Jaylen Brown was hit in the back of the head and then called out the refs for their mistake, demanding an investigation.
I think he obviously hit me in the head. I think we definitely need to do some investigation. That's all I'm gonna say.
It seems that the refs have an excessive amount of power, which is causing the players to feel frustrated and powerless.
Officiating. So at a certain point as a player, you feel it's personal.
It's alarming to see how the defense is being unfairly punished for the slightest move it makes against the offense. The officials are making the game rough, and it's not what the spectators expect. The main cause of this problem are the rules that favor offensive-minded players, leading to some crazy games. In 2010, only one player managed to score 50 points in a game, and in 2011, only Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James could achieve this. However, the number of players who scored 50 points in a game has been increasing exponentially since then. Last year, 4 players scored 50 points in a single week. This trend is a warning sign that the league is getting soft.
The game in Europe is way harder than the game in the NBA.
Just because of the amount of the different rules, the less space, the time. So that's why I said it.
So you think it's harder to score 30 points in a EuroLeague game than it is in an NBA game?
Yeah, 100%.
And it's time to take action to prevent it from becoming too soft. Even worse, it seems like this is intentional. Let's take a minute to look at the offensive rating. Back in 2017, when Kevin Durant joined the Golden State Warriors and the team had what was then considered the best offense in the entire NBA, their rating came in at 115.6 as not only the best that year, but the best in the entire history of the NBA.
A lot of those people were upset that we were so good.
This year, that same rating would put them 18 spots below the average for the NBA. So, what is going on with offense in the NBA? Well, there are a few factors involved in it. For one, there's been a whole lot more three-pointers, and the entire game is moving along at a faster clip than it used to. And also, it's not. See, in 2024, the pace is now faster than we've seen in a while, but it's not the fastest we've seen in NBA history. That record goes back to around the 60s. We don't know the exact pace at that point in time because the league wasn't tracking it, but we do know that the games were averaging around 119 points per team compared to around 115 in 2024. So, while current numbers look impressive, they're not record-setting. So, what's causing all this? Remember the 2004 NBA Finals?
It would seem to me as Peyton steals it and he has Kobe out in front, and the Lakers take the lead.
It was like 20 years ago, but damn, the Pistons and Lakers were going all out. Heavyweights were taking the deep post position and opponents were hanging on for dear life. And you know what? There was no hand-checking rule back then, so scores were around 80 to 90 points per game, which made for some tough basketball, but even though it was a battle, fans were kinda getting bored of this brand of basketball. Not only that, but viewership was down and profits were going in the same direction. It was a tough time for the NBA. Not surprisingly, the league decided that they had to do something, and so they started changing the rules in an effort to increase overall scoring. 4 major new rules had the biggest impact. Number 1, the defensive 3-second rule so that those heavyweights weren't able to just camp it anymore. Number 2, legal zone defenses. Number 3, half-court cross time was cut to only 8 seconds. And number 4, hand checking became illegal. Even these things, however, didn't beef up the numbers like they were expected to. Refs were starting to make more calls, but there were still plenty of free-for-alls going on at the time. And then there was the 2017 NBA Finals, where both teams averaged over 100 points. And something seemed to click. Suddenly, everyone was looking at three-point shooting and spacing, and the whole game changed. James Harden and Daryl Morey with the Rockets managed to make a name for themselves, and it kick-started what was essentially the biggest revolution of the offensive game since the shot clock.
Getting our defense tighter, that's the area we need to improve if we're going to give ourselves a real chance on the restart.
Up until about that time, players had roles that were not just defined on the team, but practically gospel. They stuck to their role, and those roles were often relative to their size. Size was one of the biggest factors when drafting players. But now, that's all gone out the window. It's important to have versatile players who are athletic and capable of moving around the court, ones who can dribble, pass, shoot, and get through the rotation with aggressive switching. With the way the game is played now and the way teams are drafted, every player is shooting the ball, which means there's more spacing over the floor and there's a whole lot more ball handling. Way back in the 90s, we had players like Dennis Rodman, who was an elite defender, but he wasn't a shooter. He had no offense. And that worked back then, but it doesn't work now. Being an offensive player is easy now, but being a defensive player, that can be rough. And the rules have kept right on coming. The Zaza rule was intended to protect players, but it actually made it harder for defenders to get in tight. And it's led to a whole lot of intentional fouls that are helping the offense even more than the defense, no matter what they do. Have you watched Joel Embiid play? The man is practically a giant, and before he got injured, he was shooting 12 free throws a night with practically no interference from the defense because there's nothing they can do without getting fouled. On the other hand, when Shaq was a big man on the court, he was practically getting pummeled and wasn't always getting the right calls. Unless it was a close playoff game and you had to hack a Shaq. To be honest, the offensive talent is major right now. It's amazing. But the defense needs a whole lot of work. Why? As Steve Kerr puts it, how can the defenders be up to par when they've been deprived of all the possible tools to do their job? And when it comes down to those fouls, how are viewers supposed to get into the game when any level of emotion shown by a player could lead to an ejection? Staring down an opponent without even touching him, hanging on the rim, talking to officials, it's all the stuff that viewers love to see. It's the stuff that hits the highlight reels and that people are coming back to watch again and again. But when it comes to modern gameplay, the refs are ejecting players for every little thing, and it's making the whole game less fun. If you so much as touch a player, it's considered a foul. Now, we get that the NBA is trying to make the game safer, and they're trying to make sure that things like the malice at the palace don't happen again. We even get that sometimes the refs get fed up with so much complaining and cussing and everything about their calls. But this is going way too far. The NBA as a whole is just eliminating the defense and making sure to take all the fun out of things in the process. Is there a balance to be had? Hopefully. Because the players need at least a little more freedom to speak without being ejected from the game, and the defense needs to be able to actually keep the offense from getting to the rim. Sure, there's a whole lot of great things going on with the league, like the cohesion within teams and the overall talent and efficiency of those teams. But when it comes to the officiating right now, man, it's just getting way too soft, and it needs to stop now. If you liked this video, check out my video on Bol Bol to see the softest player to not live up to his potential. And as always, thank you for watching.